It doesn't take long to realize that I am a Nintendo fanboy at heart. Like, I love Sony and I like Microsoft enough. If I had unlimited money, I'd have every console possible. But I don't, and neither do you. Push comes to shove, if I'm picking a console, it's going to be whatever Nintendo's current console is. But with prices getting higher, the console wars are kind of back. Granted, in the early 2000s, the console wars were really just there because people liked arguing whose brand was better, but nowadays people can only really afford one console, maybe two in total. So in this kind of an environment, is the Switch 2 going to dominate? When it comes to picking what console you want to play your video games on, there really is only three major reasons I can see. That being the price point of the console itself, whatever video games are exclusively on each console, and if you're very loyal to a specific brand. And that's really it. Honestly, only the first two of those reasons are valid to me. The idea of picking a better or worse product based solely on wanting to stick to a brand is a little silly to me. But with that criteria in mind, what do we know about the competition for the next generation of consoles? Well, we do need to keep in mind that the releases are a bit scattered. It's important to note that the current generation released at different times. The Xbox Series X and PS5 both released in 2020, but the Switch released 3 years earlier in 2017. So in 2024, while the Xbox and PlayStation consoles are only about halfway through their lifetime, the Switch is due for a successor, being 7 years old at this point. However, it's doubly important to know that even though the Switch 2 comes out next year, it will be competing with the PlayStation and Xbox consoles that come out 3 to 4 years later. But what is the landscape going to look like in that next generation? Well, even now, it's worth noting that the Switch 2 will, for at least 3 or 4 years, be competing with the current generation. And currently, there are pros and cons to all of them. Starting with the PS5. And there's a lot of things I could say about the PS5, but I need to start with the elephant in the room. There are no games for the console. Now, I get it, this is mostly a joke and there's plenty of games that are on the PS5, but when we're talking about exclusives, it's actually kind of rough. Going through the PS5 catalog and looking for a non-VR exclusive, non-remake game only on the PS5, you get a sum total of 4 games. And one of them, Quantum Error, has a 40% on Metacritic. That's rough. At least if you add remakes to the equation, you get Final Fantasy VII and Last of Us 2, but a lot of the best games on the PS5 came out for the PS4 as well. So the game exclusivity isn't a huge drive to get the console. That alone isn't a huge issue, and I'm not a huge fan of exclusivity in games anyway. But pairing that with the $500 price tag on the base console, it's admittedly a hard sell. Of course, more games are going to come out for the console. We're only halfway through its lifespan, and I know Ghost of Yotai is coming out next year and already has a lot of people super excited. But when a lot of your exclusives are specifically for the PSVR 2, which costs an additional $500, and the fact that the mid-generation console refresh, the PS5 Pro, was announced to be $700, it's hard to make a strong argument to buy a PS5, at least new. Not to mention, and this is kind of a personal critique more than anything, but we are kind of reaching a graphical horizon. Video game graphics can only get so good. I think it's epitomized by the triangle example. That being, take a polygon and make it out of 60 triangles, 600 triangles, 6,000 triangles, and 60,000 triangles. Going from 60 to 600 triangles, and then to 6,000 were incredible achievements and gave us way more graphically impressive games. But going from 6,000 to 60,000, I don't really notice that meaningful of a difference, and a lot of people feel the same. The tech demo they used to showcase how powerful the PS5 Pro was kind of just showed things that looked a little bit better, not $200 better. Honestly, at this point, the only way to make games look any more realistic would be to massively increase our animation fidelity, and I don't know how to do that, but a console's power is not the way.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making our very own rye toast. First, we start with 2 cups of flours. I like to use almond and coconut flour to keep things healthier, and then add 4 tablespoons of lore spice to make him nice and confused. Can't forget our theory powder and our theory soda. And then mix our dry ingredients until combined. Once that's all done, we can start adding our wet ingredients into the mixer. First, a can of pumpkin puree. Then 4 eggs because, like, look at him. Then we add a little bit of honey and add hyperactivity to the mix. Some meta oil and gamer extract. You do not want to know where that came from. Now we mix our wet ingredients until mostly combined, adding our dry ingredients and continuing to mix until a dough forms. Remember to spray your bread pans and cover with tin foil. Now just put it in the oven at 666 degrees for 5 hours and voila, your very own toast.
But who has time to do all that? Instead, you at home right now can skip all of those steps and order your very own toast plushie on makeship.com. Link in the description, displayed on the screen, and in the card. All you have to do is click and order it. These are only going to be available for a limited time, so make sure you get yours while you can. It's a great plushie and it's got 2 sides. You only have a few weeks left, so make sure to get one while you can. So then what about the Xbox? Well, it almost has the opposite problem. There are so many games on the Xbox Series S and X, especially with something like Games Pass, which is genuinely a good deal and pretty consumer friendly. You almost have too many games to pick from. Now, granted, I have my problems with digital media, and I think you should buy physical media as much as possible. After all, a lot of places realize that buying digital media is more accurate to leasing it. And by the way, if buying a product isn't owning it, then pirating it isn't stealing it. But with something like Games Pass, it's a great way for players to experience a game they maybe weren't going to try or pick up since they have it for free. And then if you like it enough, you can go and buy the physical copy. So it sounds great. What's the issue then? Well, going back to the exclusivity idea, very few games are exclusive to the Xbox console itself, as most Xbox exclusives are also available on PC via Games Pass. And look, I get it, not everyone has or wants to have a PC. After all, you need a dedicated space for it. Consoles can plug right into a TV, but your PC needs a desk, a monitor, and all that extra stuff. But the main argument I've always heard against PC gaming was that it came down to being too expensive. But realistically, for modern gaming, that's not a good argument anymore. In the past, consoles were a cheaper, more consumer-friendly way to get into gaming. Everyone's got a TV, spend $300 and you can play video games. But the price points of modern consoles are beginning to surpass some PCs. And in this digital age, pretty much everyone already has a computer. The Xbox Series X and PS5 both launched at a $500 price point. And like I said, the newest model of the PS5, the PS5 Pro, is planned to be $700. If the mid-generation console refresh is $700, I shudder to think what the PS6 will cost when we get there. $600 at a minimum, possibly $800. For $500, you can get a decently pre-built computer that can handle most modern games. Almost all of them if you're willing to adjust your settings and turn down the graphics. And that computer will do so much more for you than just play games. It turns into a center for your entire household. Not to mention, that computer can access most of the Xbox catalog via PC Games Pass. So all this in mind, what about the Switch 2? Well, we don't know the price point here yet, and I'm sure we'll find that out maybe at the end of Q4, beginning of Q1. But the Switch launched at a $300 price point. And 4 years later, in 2021, we got the upgraded OLED model, the mid-generation refresh, $350. So it seems likely that a Switch 2 will be at most $500 if these prices track accordingly. And we know for a fact that Nintendo is known for its exclusive game franchises that have never shown up anywhere else. Frankly, most people only get a Nintendo console specifically to play the games that Nintendo themselves make on it. Not to mention, we haven't got a lot of the big games in Nintendo's most well-known franchises for a long time. Mario Kart, consistently their highest seller, has not had a new entry since the Wii U. Yes, we have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Switch, and they have that whole map pack. But that's a remake of the Mario Kart on the Wii U. I can't stress enough for you how crazy it is that it's been 10 years without a new Mario Kart game. Super Smash Bros. And a 3D Mario platformer were launch titles for the Switch, and we haven't gotten a new one since, meaning that's 7 years since either of those had an entry. We haven't had a traditional Zelda game since the Wii. Breath of the Wild, while amazing, is a new kind of game. If we're talking about traditional dungeon-delving Zelda, it's been since Skyward Sword since we've gotten that. The list goes on, but if the Switch 2 comes out with a banging launch title list with a bunch of exclusives we've been waiting for, we will see a trade-in trend like you've never seen before. The Nintendo Switch is already the best-selling Nintendo console ever at 143.42 million units. To put that into perspective, the PS5 is at 61.7 million and the Xbox Series is at 28.3. It sold almost double the combined sales of its competitors. Most gaming stores offer trade-ins, especially for used consoles. If Nintendo makes the Switch 2 backwards compatible, $400 to $500, and have some of its mainline games as launch titles, I legitimately think the Switch 2 will be the largest console launch in history. All this to say, what is the best setup? What's the best way to play games in 2024 or beyond? Frankly, according to me anyway, it's whatever the latest Nintendo console is and a PC. And if you really want to get those exclusives, you can buy the latest Sony console. But frankly, right now, looking at the PS5, it's a $500 Astrobot box. And as much as I want to play Astrobot, I don't want to buy a PS5 yet. Maybe when I can get a pre-owned one for like $200, we can talk. Those are my thoughts anyway. Maybe I'm just a Nintendo glazer. You can let me know in the comments. Obviously, I like Nintendo. After all, last week's video was a focus on what the next generation of Pokemon is going to be. And spoiler alert, I think we're going back to Japan for that one. You can watch that right here. In the meantime, don't forget to grab a plushie. You only have like a week left. I don't know exactly when this video is going to go out, but it's sometime during the campaign. And until next time, you've been watching Ride Toost. Of all the YouTube channels, it's the second one. Stay toasty, slices.